After that first trial, the news of his imprisonment was all over the press.
Rodríguez está acusado de violencia doméstica por haber maltratado y herido a su expareja.
Está acusado de asalto y violencia doméstica contra su novia, entre otros cargos.
Aquí en la corte criminal, acusado de violencia doméstica en contra de su novia.
Sir, you were arrested for burglary with an assault or battery and criminal mischief.
Irónicamente, un día antes fue el Día contra la Violencia de Género o Violencia Doméstica.
En realidad se suma a los casos de violencia doméstica. Adelante, Diana.
With the headline, Ricky Martin's dancer arrested for beating a woman. First trial for the restraining order. My first trial was a hearing scheduled for only 15 minutes. I thought, why so little time? It was explained to me that most abused women regret requesting restraining orders out of fear or because they returned to the violent circle. Sometimes they have the false illusion that their partner will change, or they are threatened and extorted, and that is why the state gives them such a short amount of time. When the judge saw that he had his lawyer, I had mine, and there were a lot of people in the courtroom. Both the judge and all of us in the courtroom realized that we were dealing with a case that was going to take much longer than 15 minutes. So the judge felt the need to schedule a new hearing in order to go deeper into the case and determine whether to extend the restraining order for my protection. It should be noted that during these periods, he violated on different occasions that restraining order, the law that required him to stay more than 500 feet away from me, 152 meters of distance. He had also on different occasions slipped away from the police, and people in the industry in some way or another helped him commit these violations. I wondered how many women have died, even with a restraining or protection order. A lot. How much does a woman have to go through to feel protected? Well, I'll be honest, I didn't feel protected at all, because his attacks and harassment didn't stop, even though I had a restraining order in my favor. The positive thing about this first hearing was that the police were finally able to arrest him. That day, he had no way out. He had no way to escape from the court. That day, I was very nervous, but very firm and with a very clear conviction to fight for myself, for the other victims, and for many women who are abused every day. In that hearing, I could say that I was alone, but I wasn't. There were a couple of crucial people who supported me a lot in this very difficult process. Among them, Fabiola, whom I thank so much. She reached out to me without even knowing me. She was my walking stick with everything that was dealing with the press, because my mind wasn't on it. She also gave me moral support. She even talked to my family. At that moment, I didn't have the brains for all that. I trusted almost no one. And being an immigrant, it was more difficult because I didn't have any family or loved ones by my side. And she gave me her unconditional support. In that and in all the trials, I also had the support of a person I never imagined I would have by my side supporting me. It was her, his ex, Stephanie Pagan, who had also been abused. Let's remember that she hated me at the beginning, let's say, because the abuse she suffered was developing emotional dependency and those bad addictions to toxicity. With much love, I understood that all her anger came from all the confrontations he intentionally provoked between us to destroy your self-esteem. We were both part of a traumatic circle, we just didn't know it. She also offered me her unconditional support. She was very attentive to me, constantly asking me how I was doing and willing to support and even, if possible, to testify, because she also had a very strong, forceful and powerful statement to give. She also suffered and went through moments full of violence, threats, anger, pain, and frustration. This story is one of those stories that few would believe, but it is so starkly true. Her ex, Stephanie, was one of the most powerful companions and emotional support I have ever had. Today, I adore and respect her very much. Today, we are very close friends, and I never thought I would have such a close bond with her. I never thought we would share the darkest moments of our lives. She is such a joyful woman, so good and so intelligent that I don't have doubt about how cruel one must be to mistreat, attack, beat, humiliate, and traumatize such beautiful people and hearts. Definitely, her presence in court was something crucial that made them tremble. So crucial that in the next hearings, they brought to the case all the videos he had of her. The same videos I had seen on his laptop. The ones where he intentionally records after he abuses and provokes. Remember the reactive abuse technique. This was done to somehow or other discredit any testimony from her against the defendant, so that he could again play the role of victim. It didn't take long for the big smear campaign to be directed at her as well. Something very characteristic of narcissists. He began to spread videos of her where she was unfortunately full of anger. They were illegally recorded videos by him, and he did everything possible to discredit her before society and before justice. Even so, that made our bond stronger and closer. We supported each other as women. I defended her and she defended me. We both had each other's backs. And that is what we women need. Unite, because misogyny is real. And so femicide and gender violence too. There is no need for a war between women, and even less for a man. We need to support and take care of each other. We must no longer remain silent in face of irregularities, crimes, and offenses. We must expose what is not right. We need a conscious society with good values, full of love and empathy. And only together, both men and women, we can achieve something like that. But please, don't falsely accuse someone with lies. Don't use the voice of real victims, because the truth will always come to light. Second trial for the restraining order. After that first trial, the news of his imprisonment was all over the press.
Y esta tarde se han atrás las rejas y sin derecho a fianza, fue identificado como Sherman Rodríguez, de 30 años.
Rodríguez está acusado de violencia doméstica por haber maltratado y herido a su expareja.
Está acusado de asalto y violencia doméstica contra su novia, entre otros cargos.
Aquí en la corte criminal, acusado de violencia doméstica en contra de su novia.
Sir, you were arrested for burglary with an assault or battery and criminal mischief.
Irónicamente, un día antes fue el día contra la violencia de género o violencia doméstica.
En realidad se suma a los casos de violencia doméstica. Adelante, Diana.
With the headline, Ricky Martin's dancer arrested for beating a woman.
Del cantante Ricky Martin.
Sherman Rodríguez, uno de los bailarines miembros del elenco artístico del famoso cantante.
And of course, my tension increased.
El sujeto fue arrestado ayer.
I asked my angels to keep him in jail, but he posted a bill, and I had to keep hiding. Another sign that the system is very soft at the first signs of violence against women. For the law, the fact that he jumped through my car window was a more serious crime than beating me. The next court day arrived, and I noticed that there was a lot of press. It was odd to me because it was a simple restraining law trial. However, he and his lawyer showed up in court with 6 witnesses that neither my lawyer nor the court was aware of. It was a move that at the time I didn't understand. It was a procedure outside of the protocol. At least the correct thing to do is for lawyers to exchange evidence and witnesses to be used at trial so that each knows what to ask to the witness. And it's worth to mention that none of the witnesses they brought were witnesses to the crime.
Y es que el acusado trajo 6 testigos y la fiscalía dijo que no estaba al tanto.
I was wondering, what was the plan? What was behind all that? That day, his smear campaign against me continued. His lawyer, Jose Baez, stated in the press that they would prove that I was doing everything to obtain victim visa benefits as an immigrant in the United States.
El abogado defensor dijo que existe evidencia de que la acusadora quiere ampararse en la ley de violencia doméstica para arreglar su estatus migratorio en Estados Unidos.
Tenemos evidencia sobre de varios motivos por estas acciones y lo vamos a comprobar en la corte.
This was totally false, and I'm still waiting for them to prove what they claimed. In cameras, in the press. I was really outraged because they kept smearing my name. For a moment, I even felt like a criminal for just being an immigrant. And that was their intention, divert the focus of the crime. Still, my mission remained clear: to bring justice. It is worth mentioning that this same lawyer, Jose Baez, has been involved in questionable situations which have been totally public. You can find these on internet. For example, a detective accused him of receiving sex as part of payment and being aware of Casey Anthony's guilt, since he apparently knew that she had murdered her baby. However, the case is now closed. And today, Jose Baez is also being accused of legal fraud and is being sued by Harvey Weinstein. Jose Baez's lawyer's response to the allegations of fraud is to use the names of Harvey's rape victims and ironically accuses him of being a monster, when the world knew that he was a monster when he decided to represent him. Seeing how he uses the names of the victims to deflect attention from his actions and seeing all the irregularities and cheating in my case makes me see how questionable the honesty of lawyers like this is. Let's go back to my case and the trial. By them not informing the court or my attorney about these 6 witnesses, we were forced to reschedule the trial. In this whole story, I was my strongest witness with a lot of evidence. And although there were witnesses to the crime, it wasn't necessary to bring them in to request a simple restraining order. I wondered, why are they making these weird plays and moves for a simple restraining order? Then I understood. You see, if they could get me to lose the case over the restraining law by making the judge believe that he was supposedly the victim and that he wasn't dangerous to me, which of course he was and still is, I would lose a battle, and then they would have more leverage over the criminal trial to open up the possibility of this crime going unpunished. But I was determined to fight and take the case to the ultimate consequences until his guilty verdict. 3rd trial for the restraining order. On May 4th, 2016 was finally the day of my restraining law trial. As I mentioned to you in the previous episode, this was the day they wanted to do the dirty move on me. This was the day they wanted the police to come to court to put me in jail in front of everyone present and in front of the press for a kidnapping case they had made up for me. It was 11 a.m. and I was shaking. It was an internal tremor. After running from him for months, finally he and I were in the same room, but I had no idea it would be for a few long hours. The room was freezing, full of people, full of cameras. It was a tense atmosphere, similar to the atmosphere you feel at a funeral, but with the smell of bottle. A dirty bottle. It smelled like cheating, falsehood, immorality, hypocrisy, injustice. Again, they brought their witnesses. None of these people had witnessed the crime. Of those witnesses defending him, I only knew 3. And one of them was at Blue Martini the night of the crime. It was the same person who that night advised me not to consent to his manipulations any longer. That same person I mentioned to you in episode 11, the night that changed my life. However, this time, that person was in court on his side to lie and defend him. It was ironic to see how that same person went on to testify against me. He accused me of being crazy, jealous, and making public scandals. I was shocked. I couldn't believe all the lies he was testifying. While testifying, he avoided my gaze and could never look me directly in my eyes that day. I just wondered, how could he dare to lie in front of a judge, in front of the cameras, and under oath? What made him act that way? And to my surprise, the parade of lies was just beginning. Psychologists affirm that narcissistic psychopaths have a very strong power to manipulate facts as well as voracious power of convincing. They are masters of lies and will do anything to get what suits them. They even make others lie for them and commit crimes for them. There I understood. And that was just what I witnessed that day in court. I watched the lies walk brazenly in front of me. It was a parade of lies. There were many things I didn't understand. I spoke Spanish, they spoke English. I had a lot of anxiety, plus a translator who added to it. That made me even more tense. Time passed slowly, very slowly. I remember that there was a clock in the courtroom and I was constantly getting lost in it. It was time for the next witness to testify. His name, Juan Carlos Garcia, known in the entertainment industry as Juanqui, a choreographer. Ironically, he also spit out outright lies in front of everyone. Thanks to his testimony, the court was discussing a motion against me as a kind of counterclaim. They claimed that I had violated my own restraining law, and this meant I had to spend more money on lawyers. Let me explain. Since we worked in the same industry and the defendant couldn't be near me, the judge had ruled that whoever was hired first to dance at an event would have the right to go to work. What did the defendant do? Lie. He claimed that he would dance at events and with artists he wasn't even dancing with, in order to block my job opportunities. An example of this was on April 23rd, 2016. That day I had a show with Farruko. Juanqui, who would also be at the same event as a choreographer for Zion y Lennox dancers, claimed to have hired him as an assistant. However, they never provided evidence of either the hiring or the payment of fees. Since I was working that night dancing on stage, they took the opportunity to record me and use that video as evidence against me to introduce a motion accusing me of having violated my own restraining law. Just because I had gone to work with dignity, because yes, I was working that night. That night, I had a very hard time. He was there doing nothing. He was just hanging out and having a good time. I had to stay hidden behind curtains for most of the event. And this is just one of the cases in which people in the entertainment industry supported him and were part of his violations and lies to the law. The motion was totally denied, and Juanqui's unsubstantiated false testimony did nothing to help this criminal. The judge ruled that they couldn't use the restraining law against the victim. Again, in some way or another, I was victorious, but there was still much more to come. Hours passed, and the alleged witnesses continued to come out. The atmosphere in the court became heavier. The pain was already rumbling in my head, and in my heart, I wondered why so many lies. If I only wanted a restraining law, I only wanted protection, everything seemed uphill. We have been listening for 6 long hours, a long list of people lying, ruthlessly lying, to save and support a criminal from a simple restraining order that only required him to stay away from me. Not to mention that on the day of the trial, some photos appeared of this criminal allegedly beaten. They alleged that I hit him while I was driving that night of the crime. The interesting thing is that the witnesses of the crime saw how I made a big effort to keep control of the car when he was hitting me. I wouldn't be surprised if he gave himself the blows in order to once again play the role of victim. Very typical of narcissistic psychopaths. so that they can take revenge and change the whole reality of who the abuser really is. The time came to interrogate his mother. It was there, in front of a judge, in front of the cameras, and everyone present, that I was able to understand a little about her son's behavioral disorders. I was able to understand the source of his narcissism, his ability to lie compulsively, and the widespread difficulty in taking responsibility for his own actions. His mother was being questioned by my attorney. She, through text messages and voice memos, had admitted that yes, he was screwing me up and that he had fucked up my life.
No presiones cargo contra Sherhan, por favor. No le jodas la vida. Yo sé que él te jodió la vida a ti, pero yo te aseguro que él no va a volver a joderte más nada.
She also offered me money to drop the criminal charges against her son. But you know what? She denied all of this completely, right there in court, in front of the judge and under oath. We had the evidence of everything, her voice memos and text messages. And at that moment, her incomprehensible capacity to lie was exposed. When she failed to silence my denunciation with her money and seeing that Stephanie, his ex, was firm in denouncing the abuse of her son, she began to attack and defame us through social media. She used to call us the conspirators. She was one of the people who not only supported her son's actions, but was also part of the bullying and smear campaign through social media against Stephanie Pagan, his ex, and myself. She spoke of an alleged conspiracy to defame her son, when in fact we were exposing a predator, an abuser of women. And this is part of what many women go through when we decide to speak out. It was time for me to give my testimony and be questioned. I felt an emptiness inside. I hadn't eaten anything all day. I was very nervous. As his lawyer interrogated me, he made me feel like the criminal in the whole story, with his leading and aggressive questions. He was invasive and paraphrased my answers at his convenience. I remember my effort to stay focused, connected with the true facts. It was a challenge I managed to overcome with an air of victory. But it was hard, and more when it's another language. I remember the insinuations and hypotheses that I was inventing a crime of gender violence to obtain some benefit as an immigrant in the United States came up again and again. His lawyer asked me with his peculiar accusatory tone, "Were you pressuring my client to get married, to get papers in the United States?" My answer was clear, direct, and forceful. "Don't you think that if that were the case, I would have accepted the engagement ring he gave me in New York and gotten married? By the way, I have pictures of the ring and the evidence that it was rejected." A looming silence invaded the room. His attorney insisted, "You're telling me that after you obtained the desired rock, the ring, you turned it down?" My response was, "Correct." I don't think his lawyer had any idea that he had wanted to engage me. Also, in court, they insinuated that through my knowledge and talents in acting, I was manipulating justice and the crime that had been committed. In other words, that I was acting everything out and that the bumps in the pictures were makeup or Photoshop. In my head, I was thinking, acting? So the witnesses who saw the crime were also actors hired to follow my car and testify on my behalf. The blood the witnesses saw was special effects. And in the end, what is the name of the movie? It was a joke, very unfunny indeed. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. There was little press left in the courtroom, and I still had nothing to eat. It had taken 10 long hours for the justice system to grant me a simple restraining order, a law for my protection. It was the most outrageous and embarrassing day of my life. I had so many heartbreaks together. I couldn't handle so many lies, so much injustice. I felt the world was against me, and this is what narcissistic abuse is like. I just wanted protection and for my life to return to normal, but that normality never came. Through the whole trial, my hands were playing with some napkins to calm my anxiety. With them, I made white flowers that helped me to calm down. I remember being there in front of the judge, watching lawyers battling, and my mind would switch off at times and I would get lost in limbo. When I'd come back, I'd realize and think, wow, Magdiel, look where you are. How the fuck did you get here? At what point did all this happen? I felt I was living the scene of a movie, the one of my life. It was time for the judge to give his verdict. It was 9:40 p.m. The court building was already closed to the public. We were the only courtroom waiting to finish. When the judge came out to give the verdict, it was finally in my favor. The victory was mine. I was approved the restraining order for 1 year. I asked myself, 1 year? I wanted it for life. I imagined that having only 1 year of protection, the nightmare would continue, and I would have to run away and continue hiding to protect myself. That day, I understood the frustration of women who have experienced gender violence and seek justice. I understood the flaws in the system that often lead to femicide. When I asked the state for protection, it wasn't just because I had been beaten. No, I asked for protection because I had been harassed, persecuted, humiliated, and abused for more than a year. I don't think anyone took into account that the incident could have ended in a tragedy. Remember that I was driving while he was hitting me. The blows could have knocked me unconscious and caused an accident that could have cost me or someone else's life. Clearly, you could see the dangerousness of these types of people who act without caring about the consequences. And that is how murders and femicides happen, because of the unconsciousness of these type of people. After the trial, as the days went by, I lost hope that my life would return to the way it was before. I was very naive to think that with a restraining order, I could get rid of the next attacks and defamations. I wondered what had to happen for him to leave me alone. What had to happen for them to give me a protection law of at least 10 years? That he would leave me almost lifeless. Still, the battle continued. We were on our way to a criminal trial, and this time it was the state against the defendant. So far, David 2, Goliath 0. If you have gone through difficult circumstances, be it abuse, bullying, or unfair situations, and you feel that you have ceased to be you, that you have lost your essence and have hidden behind the shadows of your fears, I would like to help you and together put into practice tools to know the root of what may be affecting you and together free yourselves. Go to the link in the description, maggalife.com/liberation, and get your masterclass and workbook. It's free. With love, Magdiel.